Namaste. Welcome everyone for today's webinar on the Yoga of Motherhood with Srimati Shilpa Agarwal. Let's start off with an invocation to the Divine Goddess, the short breathing exercise. Shilpa Ji.
Thank you, Ankurji. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here this evening and taking time out of your busy lives to join us today. So I just invite you right now to put a hand on your heart. And today is the second day of Navratri, so we're just going to invoke the goddess. We're just going to close our eyes and just inhale for a count of 5 into our hearts, and then I will say a short prayer. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep your eyes closed. O Devi, O Mahashakti, O Mahakali, and your infinite forms. We feel you coursing through us, awakening us, transforming us. We feel how you continue to destroy what no longer serves us. We know that you're with us, even in our difficulties. May we be filled with your divine energies of strength, passion, willpower, and to make the changes that we need to make. May we be filled with your love and ferocity to set things right. May we know you in the vast midnight sky and through your liberating grace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you for that, Shilpa Ji. Really, really nice. And before I give you a proper introduction, thank you, Gomati Ji, for joining us. K. Sankar from New York, Johnny Palka from Maple Grove, Minnesota, Shila G from Charleston, South Carolina, Gomati Ji from India. Thank you for joining us. And if you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you are zooming in from. Happy to have people zooming in from around the world. Ryan from Los Angeles, Gautam Takku from Ohio. Glad to have you on. Some regulars. So we started off with a poll question. We'll get to that later. But let me introduce our very own Srimati Shilpa Agarwal. She's actually an internationally published author, pranic healer, decolonial academic, and radio host. She teaches mothers and women how to engage with their subtle body and the divine to harness forces of healing for themselves and their children. She's previously taught the course Mother Womb, Engaging the Divine Feminine, right here at HUA. Her specialty is helping women and mothers heal their childhood wounds, ancestral trauma, and difficult relationships, and teaching mothers to heal their children to bring about full, happy, and healthy lives and harmonious relationships. Shilpa Ji has received Diksha into several healing modalities and traditions, both in India and in the West, and has intensively studied and integrated yogic frameworks and modern medical and scientific concepts of epigenetics and the quantum field even into her own healing work. Now that her children are grown up, Shilpa Ji is currently nurturing other eggs in her nest, including a trilogy of novels, along with continued work in teaching and healing. And we are glad that she is with us at Hindu University of America today. So anybody else put in the chat where you're joining from? Kanaji from Ohio, Longan Ayangi from Chennai, Rajesh Ji from California, Rochester, Minnesota, Vaishali Ji. Glad to have everyone in this Zoom with us today for this interesting and engaging. I guess we're going to go with a conversation, right, Shilpa Ji?
That would be great.
Do you want to start with an opening remarks and some framing, and then we can go back and forth a little bit?
Sure. Why don't you, I would love to start with just talking about the title, The Yoga of Motherhood, and understanding kind of where this came from. So I'm just going to start with that. the word yoga, as many of you know, means union and involves a flow and a methodology by which we unite our individual consciousnesses with divine or cosmic consciousness. And as we engage in yoga, we begin to receive insights and revelations about ourselves and the world around us that come from a deeper level, from beyond the ego mind. And these insights help guide our lives in ways that bring harmony, health, fulfillment, empowerment, contentment, and joy into our lives. So that's the yoga part. And the motherhood part is that motherhood is a profound journey in itself, one in which we are deeply connected to the lives of those who we are responsible to nurture and sustain. And as mothers, as fathers too, but I'm talking about mothers here, as mothers, we feel that innate oneness with our children, but when they are sick or unwell, especially chronically, or when they have so-called behavioral problems, or often when they are teenagers or young adults, we experience a sense of helplessness or overwhelm or rupture with them, and we don't know what to do to repair it. We don't realize that it's not only what we do or have done for our children as they're growing up, but who we are inside, our unhealed wounds and triggers, our anxieties and fears, our unconscious ways of being that impacts our children. So an aim of this course, the Yoga of Motherhood, is to become more conscious of what is happening inside us as mothers, and simultaneously to both see and lovingly influence our children, even to the level of being able to heal them, help them heal from sickness or disease or hurtful or harmful behaviors. So I would say the Yoga of Motherhood offers a pathway to healing, a reconnection with ourselves as mothers and with our children in a way that we can understand them from the inside out rather than the outside in, the inside out. And as we heal as mothers and our children heal and our relationship with them and others in our lives heal. It's really that simple.
Great. Thank you for breaking down Yoga of Motherhood for us to start us off. That's very helpful. So, but maybe you just can tell us about your healing journey, how you got here, like why you're in this space.
Okay, I'm gonna, yeah, I'd love to talk about that. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the healing journey in general, and then I'll talk about myself. So the healing journey begins with going inside ourselves and connecting with the ancient ways we used to live. Like think about the Satya Yuga, when we live in alignment with the natural laws and with an understanding that the answers and cures live within us or in the natural world. I want to clarify that I'm not advocating that we give up our doctors or therapists. Keep your doctors, keep your therapists, and also open to this new way of healing. And so medical knowledge is important and has its place, but so does inner knowledge. And an aim of the Yoga of Motherhood is not just about relieving symptoms, inflammation, pain, disorders, but getting to the root of these symptoms, to the starting point of the disease or pain, to the cause. And this root sometimes goes back many years. It can go back to our events in our lives. It can go back to our childhoods. It can even go back ancestrally. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But this class, the Yoga of Motherhood, asks us to go into our aches and our pains, our unhealthy habits, our triggers, our heartbreaks, and understand why. It asks us to go into our difficult familial relationships and to really see why certain things are happening beyond our egos and our hurts, all of that, to really see. We talk about family systems. So this class is an invitation to go deeper, deeper into ourselves, and to open a door that we might never have opened had things gone so smoothly. And often the whys of why things are happening in our lives are a whole host of reasons, and usually operating on the subconscious or unconscious levels of our being. It can be environmental, it can be psychological, it can be socioeconomic, emotional, ancestral. We can touch upon all of those things. So I would say if you are opening to another way of perceiving, if we are willing to make the effort, if we are willing to be disciplined about it, we are also able to heal. No matter our backgrounds, no matter our genes, no matter our upbringing or our wounds. And through the yoga of motherhood, we can have a more empowered voice and agency in our own healing and that of our loved ones. A healing that comes from a dynamic intelligence. It comes from a consciousness that resides in all the layers of our bodies. And we're going to talk about those layers in class. We're going to talk about the different koshas, the physical, the mental, the pranic. It's an intelligence that also resides in every single one of our cells. It's a cellular intelligence as well. And every single one of us has the ability to access it. We just have to learn how. And so I think that is very, very powerful.
Wow. Yeah, the healing journey is so complex, so many layers, and so many aspects of what you just mentioned touch me in different ways. But maybe again, focusing a little bit on, so what do the women and the mothers who study with you gain? And you went into so many different layers of that, but just to really crystallize it for our audience, including Shanti Ji from Portland, who just joined, and Gomati Ji, who says motherly touch in her speech. I agree.
Thank you. Okay, so good question. Let's see, I'm going to enumerate this. What do mothers and women who study with me gain? Okay, a number of things. First, you gain a way to access the more subtle dimensions of your own bodies, emotions, thoughts, through an understanding of a Hindu yogic framework of consciousness, especially the realm of the pranamaya kosha or sheath of life force. And it's a very, here in the West, we say energy body, but in our yogic framework, it's a very, very sophisticated entity with sub-layers and personalities and characteristics that we will dive into in class. So that's the first. The second is that you will gain confidence in connecting with this inner intelligence and this inner knowing. A third is you will begin to see and realize the roots of the difficulties in your lives. You will be able to identify unprocessed mental and emotional turmoil that exists within you and within your children. Fourth, you will begin to see and understand the fundamental connection between ancestral traumas and your disease or your children's disease. We will learn how to begin the process of releasing this trauma from the subtle body. And when you release trauma from the subtle body, it also starts to release it from the mental and the physical bodies. And this is one way to bring about well-being. Fifth, you will learn methods and tools to heal in this subtle dimension. Actual practical, I will give you a tool belt and you will learn these tools and you will be able to employ them in different ways. Sixth, you will strengthen your own inner vitality as mothers and women, and you will be able to help your children do that too. Seventh, you'll have an opportunity to connect with other mothers in my class on this journey of self-discovery, and you will be able to do this in a very safe and nurturing environment. And we will learn how, when we step into this realm of collective healing, we're stepping into this quantum field, and it, as we give to others, we receive back in our own healing and in our own lives. And it's a very powerful thing. I do collective healings, and it's very powerful. So we'll engage in that as well. So I would say my students have the opportunity to gain all of this and more that I can't think of at the moment in the Yoga of Motherhood.
Wow, thanks for enumerating it. It's so many layers, like you articulated so wonderfully.
Thank you.
So back to that earlier question, but how did you come to doing this work in healing women?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So thank you for reminding me. So my own journey began at age 14. I fell sick with an autoimmune disease. Um, I was told that I had no cure, that it would get worse over time, and that, when I was older, I would have, I'd be sick all the time and all this stuff. And, the reverse has happened. I'm more vital now than I was in my 20s. But this autoimmune can be traced genetically back to my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my nani. And as I went down the long path of healing, which was almost like a wild goose chase from doctor to doctor, therapy to therapy, um, I ended up realizing two things. One, that remember I talked about like finding the root of a disease. I realized that the root of my disease was in my ancestry, in my nani's experience as a refugee during the partition of India. And it was rooted not just genetically, like biologically, physically, but it was rooted emotionally and energetically too. And the second was that no medicine, I mean, medicine has been important in my life in terms of helping to manage things, um, especially earlier for most of my life. Things have shifted now in my life, but that no medicine was as powerful as me learning how to heal myself. I became my own best healer. And I can, in my life, even if there's a subtle like discomfort or something that I feel might be kind of triggering the autoimmune, I know I can sit and I can deal with it, and I can release it and bring myself back to balance. And that's like very, very powerful. Instead of being like, oh no, this is happening, my life is out of control, my body's out of control, now I have to take all this medicine, and that fear and that anxiety and that roller coaster that goes along with it. It's this calm knowing this is what I need to do. Also, I would say the second, so one was the autoimmune. The second was my own journey as a mother. And oh, thank you for the hearts. I remember days and weeks and years where I was working nonstop to take care of my family and their needs and their schedules and their nutrition and their social stuff, on top of caring for my home and looking out after my own career. And I was exhausted. I had I had my autoimmune. I developed chronic migraines for 3 years. I had chronic migraines. I had very little life force. I was angry. I was exhausted. And my internal state was impacting my children. And I started to have a lot of fights with my older daughter. And I tried to do everything I could to help our relationship. And we had, of course, beautiful moments of connection and affection, but there was always like this fighting. And I, I knew something was missing, but no one could guide me. I asked her pediatrician, no one around me seemed to be able to say, this is how you heal. And then I started this inward healing journey, and I met a master healer, and I realized that I was stuck in these emotional and mental patterns from to touch upon them, these energies, these patterns from my great ancestresses. And I started to feel what they felt and what they struggled with. And I started to release all this stuff that was getting in the way of a harmonious relationship with my daughter. I started to release the ways that I saw myself, which was very critical and very unloving and very judgmental. And I started to release all of that. And I became stronger and happier and more vibrant as a mother. And our relationship became more and more close and connected. And I would say now I'm really thankful for those struggles and those fights because they've helped me become a better mom and a better human being. So, you know, yeah, so that's what I would say. Those are the two things. And I would say that learning to become a healer, becoming a healer in my own life and be able to do that for my children is very powerful because if my children are sick and now they're grown and they're, in different places, they're not at home with me, I'm able to help them no matter where they are geographically. I'm able to help my mom who lives somewhere else, my sister, my friends, my community. I can connect with the quantum field, with a pranic field, the quantum field, the field of consciousness, and understand what's happening within them. And as a quick example, my older daughter was recently traveling in South America and she became really sick and she was traveling alone and she was in a hostel and she was very sick, vomiting, throwing up, all that kind of terrible GI stuff. And she's in a hostel somewhere thousands of miles away. And, my old self would go into this terrible panic and I would be like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is terrible. And I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to function. And instead, I just sat and I knew that I could connect in with her from wherever I was. I knew that I could help her. And I was able to go into her subtle body. And the body, it holds truth. The body, it speaks truth. Our words can be lies, but our body speaks truth. And so when we connect into that, we know the truth of what those cells are experiencing, what those organs are experiencing. So I checked in with her with different organs. I checked in to the layers of the organs because every organ has its own layers of consciousness. I checked in with different glands. I checked in with, viruses, bacteria, and parasites because they each have a different frequency. And so I could sense I could check in with her body and see if there was a match with like certain frequencies of viruses or bacteria and parasites. It ended up that what came up was that she actually had a not an allergic reaction, but a pretty severe intolerance to something that she had eaten, and it had set her system off, and it created a vulnerability in her system. And when there's a vulnerability, other things can come and impact the system, including ancestral energies. That's a very complex picture, but the point is that I was able to help her get better. And one of the yogis that we will be working with in the class, her name is Mother Mira. She's the spiritual consort of Sri Aurobindo. And she is very clear. She states that this type of work where we sit and we can use our minds and we can use our hearts to be able to help others heal. She states unequivocally that this is more powerful than even being with someone in person. That work is very important, caring for someone, tending to them when they're sick, but she's saying that this work is even more powerful. That work is powerful. This work is even more powerful. So this is what I want for my students too. Increase strength, health, confidence, connectedness, happiness, the ability to help our children and our loved ones, no matter where they are in this world.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and then also being willing to share how to go through it and help people with it. I think this is a good time to share the poll, right? We have this question, if you didn't see it: when my children suffer illness or pain, I feel helpless, overwhelmed, or anxious. If you haven't seen it, please click it. Let us know. Almost everyone has filled it out. If I haven't given you a shout out, please put in the chat where you are zooming in from. It's small but mighty crew that we have, people who are really tuning into this frequency, right? So let me share these poll results. You can take a look at it. I think everyone can see these results, right? That's popping up.
Yes.
So if you want to make a comment on that, and
So yeah, go ahead. You make a comment
and
first.
then this aspect, and then the kind of what you're talking about, right? Connecting with the your inner self, the body, the subtle body, and then there's that kind of inner intelligence as well, right? So how are you connecting with that? I mean, if you can elaborate a little bit, yeah.
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for the poll results. I see that, quarter of the respondents are always overwhelmed or anxious or helpless, and 11% often, and more than half sometimes. So, I think that, and 11%, never. So that's great. So, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. So thank you for those poll results. But in terms of like connecting in with this intelligence, I gave you the example of my daughter and being able to kind of understand what was happening in her body at that time. But another example is that I use this every day of my life. I use it. I'm every time I eat food, I connect in with this inner intelligence to make sure what I'm eating is in alignment with my body, what I'm drinking is in alignment with my body. Um, uh, food that I buy, that it's in line with my body. So it's something that I'm always aware of. And last year I went on a trip to India with my mom, and we were on pilgrimage, and we were eating food that was cooked out. It wasn't at home. And because of my autoimmune, which is in my GI system, I'm very sensitive, very, very sensitive to, like, if I put something wrong in my system, it's going to go off track. So I checked each time if that everything was in alignment with my system. And there were definitely things my body was saying, no, don't eat that, or don't touch that. And so I followed that, um, and, you know, my mind wasn't saying it. My body was saying it. My cellular intelligence was saying it. And in fact, there were times that my mind was caught up in fear and worry. Like once we were at this communal meal at this temple, and they were serving the whole meal on a banana leaf, and there was this buttermilk. And my mind was like, oh, that liquid is not safe and you should not drink it, because like I'm always thinking about water or liquid stuff being unsafe. And but then I went into this dynamic pranic connection with the buttermilk. Um, and when you enter into that field, you're getting information that's beyond the five senses, beyond the ego mind, which is like stuck in fear, and beyond what you can, the five senses are important. You can smell something, you can taste whatever. But I was in alignment with this buttermilk, and if there was something in it that was harmful to my body, the response that I would have gotten was that I would feel the energetic system of my body weaken, that there would be a clear indication that, so before I even taste the buttermilk, I just have to look at it, or to call it to my consciousness, and I can feel in my system, is it strengthening my system or is it weakening it? And it was fine. It said it's an alignment, and I drank it, and I had no issue with it, and it was great. And so it was being able to be in situations in my life where I have the confidence to trust what I'm eating, what I'm putting in my body. But even more important was that I could check in the alignment from my mom, who has a different system, a different energetics, but I could connect her energetic system with what she was eating and see if that was in alignment, so I could keep her healthy and well too. And so it's very powerful work to be able to understand this energetic system, and to be able to feel what is making us stronger and feel what is weakening us. And this intelligence will tell us if if I'm talking to someone and they're sick or healthy. It will tell us if we walk into a space and someone in that space is contagious with a virus. and again, it's not me or my ego mind knowing, it's the subtle body, it's the cellular intelligence that's like, it's not fixed in the body, it's non-local, it's spread all over, right? So we can feel everything. And it's the part of us that's always in this state of expansion and is always united with this cosmic consciousness, and that which connects everything in existence. So that's an example.
Very cool. Very cool. Right. Just tapping into your environment and actually feeling what's going on and being able to tie it together makes so much sense. Manasi G from Seattle, glad to have you on. We're going to get to Q&As just shortly. But, one thing that you've been doing at HUA is I think you've taught the mother womb engaging the divine feminine 2 quarters in a row now, right? Or
That's
yeah,
right.
2 quarters in a row. So now this is the second time you're teaching Yoga of Motherhood? You taught it at the start, or this is the first time
This
you're
is the
offering?
third time I'm teaching Yoga of Motherhood.
Third time you're offering this course. Twice
Mhm.
you offered Mother Womb Engaging the Divine Feminine. So what's the difference between these classes, and how, maybe if I'm jumping the gun, how has it progressed and changed and given different perspectives on your
Yeah.
work and how you connected with students and all the different, I mean, there's so much there. I know we're going to get into it. Maybe if we have more time, we'll get into those details as well.
Okay. Yeah. No, good question. So both classes focus on healing and going inward and understanding ourselves as women. The mother womb engaging the divine feminine class is focused primarily on the womb and healing illnesses and diseases of the womb, and things such as addressing infertility, healing from maternal loss, because there's a lot of grief that's sometimes unprocessed or kept secret sometimes. Also, it was focused on preparing the womb for conception, and how we prepare ourselves as women to receive that child. We also engaged with Shakti Prana, which is the feminine force existent in the womb to bring about healing. So there was many things we did in that class that was very specifically focused on the womb. In the Yoga of Motherhood class, which is what I'm teaching this coming quarter, starting next week, is focused more on our relationships with our children and how we can help them when they're sick or behaving in ways that cause distress, how we can positively influence them, how we can develop close relationships with them. It's also a deep dive into the pranamaya kosha and how to engage with it. Remember, I talked about how sophisticated it is, how many layers it has, what are its characteristics, what are its personalities, what are its urges. So we go into this in a very deep way, understanding it, because understanding the yogic paradigm of the pranamaya kosha, or this pranic field, is very, very important. And for example, the nervous system lies at the nexus of the physical body and the energetic body. So it carries so much information from the unconscious into the physical body. So we do a lot of touching base on these nexus points. In both classes, I give my students a tool belt to help them heal, meaning I give them, if you think of the tool belt, I give them different tools for different things that they might want to address. But the tools are different in the mother room class, and the tools are different in this class. So if you've taken both classes, you have a very full tool belt. In this class, for example, I teach my students ways to protect their children in the subtle realm from things like viruses, outside influences, things like that. Things like bolstering a child's inner confidence if they're struggling at school. I give my students a step-by-step guidance to become their own inner healer. And many students have taken both classes. Many students repeat classes because each time they gain something new. Each time when you enter, you're learning something new. The healings become deeper. The guidances become deeper. Also, many students take classes because then when you're in the class, you get guidances from me in your own healing journey. So and you're also with a group of women, a wonderful group of women. So yeah, so that's the difference between, I would say those are the fundamental differences between the two classes.
Very good. Actually, Tumi from UK was asking kind of that, right? What was the details of this course? And her question was specifically on help for women who have missed the opportunity to have children and how that is. So that's, I know, something that's more and more prevalent, and people have lots of thoughts on that. So it's nice to hear the two courses and how you address so many layers to what it is. Um, Even the men are finding it very interesting and engaging, as Rajesh G put in the chat. So there's two layers, right? What would you say to it's I can't do this work. Can I do this work as a man? But also, I think other women, mothers, feel like they can't do this type of work. It's esoteric. It's out there, and how do you actually do it, right? And then the course deep, like, are the courses designed only for women, and then the age also, and how you kind of organize all of that.
Yeah, okay. Those are all good questions. So this course and the Mother Room course are designed only for women, but I am I am hoping to offer, I am planning, depending if everything goes well, to offer a class for both men and women in the fall. And there'll be more news on that, hopefully in the coming months of what that is. So I'm very excited about that. So I do feel like it's important to bring men into this healing work as well. But these two classes are mainly for women, are for women. And I work with, in this class, I work with mothers who are trying to conceive, with mothers with young children, mothers of adolescents and young adults, and even mothers whose children are mothers themselves. So the age doesn't matter. It's a matter of, wanting to connect in with yourself as a mother and wanting to connect in with your children. And in terms of what do I say to women who feel like the work is beyond them or too esoteric, I would say there was a time when I didn't know any of this, that when the subtle realm was way beyond me. And for most of my healing journey in my life, especially my 20s and 30s, I was very much reliant on doctors and the medical system. And I felt very helpless in my own health. I felt very scared of my disease. Whenever it came out, it felt like this beast coming out and taking over my life and knocking me down and limiting me. And I hated it, and I hated my body, and I hated the disease. And I felt very helpless. And that is all changed now, right? So um, it is through the studying with my own teacher, my own teachers, and through my inner study and commitment to one, wanting to get better so that I didn't feel helpless, and two, making sure that this genetic disease did not pass to my children, that I started to find my way. And as I've mentioned before, I've taught this class several times. Um, I've had students from all different backgrounds, nationalities, abilities. And during the class, each one had insights, discoveries, positive changes in their relationships with loved ones, positive changes with their children, healing in their children, healing in their own bodies. Had one student that had lost her mother and had been 5 years ago and had been grieving for 5 years. And she said it was during one of my healings that she finally was able to find peace with that. And so, like, very profound things that have come out of this class. Also positive ways that women saw motherhood in very empowered and liberating ways, and how they wanted to mother. So I would say this class is a starting point. It's a way to open the door. Or if you've already opened it, it's a way to take the next step on your journey. And as I said, I have former students that have taken, who are continuing to study with me and come back class after class. And I've seen tremendous change in them and their lives. It's quite wonderful to see.
Very cool. One concept that is always striking to me, and it hits again, and you mentioned this, is ancestral or intergenerational trauma, right? I think it's important to articulate it. How do you even know you're carrying it? Just take a minute for that, please.
Well, I think that everyone talks about ancestral trauma now. It's kind of like something that's come up a lot in medicine, and now we see research tying, why do South Asians have so much higher rate of heart disease? It's traced to ancestral trauma, our history of colonization. Why do we have higher rates of diabetes and many other things? So these things are being traced now by science and medicine. Carl Jung, who was very highly influenced by Hindu thought and yogic thought, Hindu yogic thought, he said that whatever remains unconscious does not dissolve, but rather resurfaces in our lives as fate or fortune. So he's pointing to a truth from our ancient texts and teachings, that our lives are a continuum, right? That our souls evolve from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. We are born and we are shaped by our parents, who are born and are shaped by their parents, who are born and shaped by theirs and theirs and theirs. So just like everything in nature is a pattern, we are a pattern too. And this means we oftentimes repeat patterns, and sometimes very unhealthy patterns. And some of them are positive traits, but some of them are negative. So what we know is that pain does not always dissolve on its own or diminish with time. Even if the person who has suffered the original trauma has died, like my maternal grandmother, my Nani, even though her story remained submerged for years and years and years of silence, only to be really spoken about in the last years of her life. The sensations, the memory, it lives on in those that follow. It lives on in us, right? And so it's almost like these unresolved pains and traumas from the past, they reach out to find resolution in our bodies and minds. There's a completion process that must happen in healing. And so it's the bodies of us living in the present. We're manifested here. And so we're the containers in which this all has to resolve. And so the silence and the secrets and the traumas of our ancestors, they find their way into our bodies and into the bodies of our children, and they create this disharmony and even disease and many things that are unexplained. There's so much pain that's unexplained, that's called this syndrome or that syndrome. We need to give better answers, right? We need to understand what's really happening. And this is why we must find our way into safe spaces, safe and nurturing and non-judgmental and compassionate spaces where we can speak, where we can be heard, and where we can be received with love. And this is how we heal. And as I said, like whatever is not conscious will be experienced as fate. In other words, we're likely to be repeating unconscious patterns until we bring them to the light of awareness. So, and that is the process of healing. That we need to see, and we need to break these patterns, and we do it in community. We do it through witnessing ourselves with compassion and having others witness us with compassion. It's through love. I think love is the most powerful force in nature and in this cosmos. So in this class, we go into the science of epigenetics. I talk a lot about epigenetics, how we can influence gene expression. Genes, they make up a very small percentage of what actually can, if we have a gene for something, it makes up a small percentage of whether or not the descendants will have that disease. What is the biggest influence is epigenetics. The factors, all the factors, the environmental, social, mental, emotional, everything that are going to turn on that gene, so we have the disease, or turn it off, so we don't have it. And that is where we have so much power, and it's like overwhelming power. 90, I forget, but in the 90% is the epigenetics. So yeah, we have a lot of power to influence our health and wellness.
Wow, thank you. We've got a couple questions in the Q&A box. I think we touched on a lot of them though. And one thing that just my last question before we get into the class structure, the details of the course is, what's made you so passionate about helping moms and bringing it through programs at HUA?
Well, I would say HUA has really been a space that is allowing for some of this work to be done, because it's non-academic, right? But it's so grounded in the in the theoretical framework of our yogis and our seers and our rishis. And so some of the important and innovative work that's happening at this university is about decolonization, meaning unraveling the damaging narratives written about us and other people of color throughout the history of European colonization and other traumas that we have faced. And for me, part of this is unraveling the colonial underpinnings of modern medicine that can make us into these specimens where we feel helpless in the face of our illness, and we are beholden to the medical system to tell us what's wrong with us and manage our systems. And I certainly experienced this firsthand, where the doctor was like, this is what's wrong with you. This is what you need. Not all doctors are this way. My father was an amazing doctor, but I'm just saying in general, this is what my experience was, where I felt very helpless and I had to follow these instructions. And now you take these steroids because you're sick, and now this happens and now that happens. And there's a terrible feeling of helplessness and feeling out of control. And so what I want to bring us back to, again, what I'm saying is, let's keep our doctors, let's keep our therapists, but let's remember our own power in healing ourselves. Let's ground ourselves in our own indigenous ways of healing. We can not only heal ourselves, but we can heal our children, we can heal our loved ones, we can heal our families, we can heal each other collectively in communities, and shifting the power from only those who have medical knowledge, and that's important, to every single person on earth, that we all can help each other heal. And our Sanatana dharmic tradition has always been invested in the health and well-being of the self. So we have the science of Ayurveda, which brings the synergy between the physical body constitution and its life forces. And there's many Ayurveda classes at the university. We have the Yoga Sutras, which teaches us which goes through the Manomaya Kosha, teaches us how to still the mind and access a realm of perception beyond thought and bring healing into the entire being. And of course, there's a whole series of classes on that at HUA. And we have the integral yoga of Rishis Sri Aurobindo and Mother Mira, aimed at uncovering the hidden divine within us and bringing health and healing into our bodies through that connection, and many, many more things. And so the yoga of motherhood is a pathway for us to move from states of contraction and fear and helplessness and out of controlness and unconsciousness and binary thinking and selfishness and pain into greater states of expansion. Taking that breath into feeling like, okay, I'm okay, into consciousness, into healing, into awareness. And I believe, and I always tell my students, always, that healing is a move from contraction to expansion through the crucible of the self. Healing is a move from contraction to expansion through the crucible of the self. And so I would say the Yoga of Motherhood is a very special class for mothers to learn to heal themselves, their children, and their lineages.
Beautiful. Now's a good time. I'd launch the poll to ask if you're interested in enrolling in the course. Just let us know, yes, no, maybe. We also have programs, as Shilpa Ji was talking about. If your second question, if you could let us know if you're interested in enrolling in a program. Um, Wonderful. And maybe that's also a good time to get into the class structure, the syllabus, just go through that, put details. It's going to start this time. The course is going to be at this time. That's why we're having the webinar right now. If you can make this webinar, you could well, I don't know what your schedule is like, but that's why we try to do it this way. So hopefully you will be interested in taking this course. Recommend it to your wife. John Palka, thank you for sharing your story. We'll get into comments and questions shortly.
Recommend it to your wives, your mothers, your daughters, anyone in your life that you love. Yes. Typical, thank you, Ankurji, typical class structure. So usually in every class, we start by going inward, we invoke the divine. I usually spend part of the class giving some sort of theoretical foundation for the work. So I work with slides. We go into paradigms and frameworks, and I show you modalities for healing. We always have an experiential component where I actually guide you through the healing. And we always have a sharing component where we're sharing our discoveries and we're learning from each other. And I am giving my input and insights as the students are sharing what their experiences are during the experiential part. So that's like a typical class structure. It changes here and there. We might have movement, we might have something creative going on. So I adapt to what the class needs are and what people are interested in. And so every class is in a way a dynamic experience, but that's a typical class structure. In terms of the syllabus, weeks 1 through 3, we start with you as a mother and woman, because remember I said first we have to understand ourselves and we have to cultivate a connection with our inmost divine self before we can even do the work. So we will identify we will start to identify like these burning issues, like what's happening in your life that you want to heal. Is it in your life? Is it your child's life? This can be a health issue. It can be a behavioral issue. It can be a strained relationship. It can be recurring dark thoughts. We will start to unpack this issue over the course of the 10 weeks. And we'll start to ask questions about our roles as mothers and how the roles that we inhabit have shaped us. And we'll learn several paradigms of yogic paradigms of the body, and we will start to enter into them, and we will learn to move into expanded states. We will receive insights. Weeks 4 to 6, now that we've kind of done that first part of the work of understanding who we are, we'll open up to our families and our family systems or family constellations, because we're just a star. We're a beautiful star, but we're just a star in a larger constellation. And this constellation works together, and just like gravity of all of our planets play on each other. We just had the eclipse, this weekend. The energy and the gravity of the people in this larger family system impacts us. It pulls and it pushes, it repulses, and it eclipses and it shines, and all of those things. And there's an unspoken communication that goes on. So our families influence the way we think. They influence our roles, our behaviors, our expectations, our emotional and mental patterns. So we're going to touch upon that, become aware of that. Also, trauma, hurt, secrets, family members that are cast out or who are estranged, they still hold an impact. Pluto's been cut out of the planetary system, but Pluto still has a impact on us. And so in the same way, oftentimes we're suffering and we can't understand why, and we can trace it back. But even if we can't trace it back, we don't know what's happened, or we don't have a relationship with these people, we can access it in the pranic field or in the quantum field, the field of consciousness, and we can get those insights. We can understand. I have students that work with ancestresses or ancestors, going back 2, 3, 4, 5 generations, being able to access them, get messages from them, understand what has happened. So, and in these weeks, these like central weeks of the class, will especially be focusing on the connection between mother and child, especially in the subtle realm. Mothers will learn how to access the subtle bodies of their children and begin the work of healing. I'm going to be talking about parameters there. When the children are young, there's certain parameters. When the children get older, there's different parameters. And when I say this, I say we're not talking about accessing our children's subtle bodies so that we can like force them to clean their rooms or to like do their homework or do things like that. This is working in the pranic field is about accessing truth, love, compassion. It's not about control. It's not about wanting to make our kids do anything. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about not knowing anything, not controlling anything. It's a profound place of surrender. And it's work that originates not in the ego mind, but in the heart and the higher mind. And it's work that is steeped in integrity and truth. And then in weeks 6 to 10, we will look at some of the current literature in the field of healing. I will talk about how past events are stored in our tissues and our cells. We will talk about the work of integral yoga. We'll go deeper, a deeper dive into integral yoga and the pranamaya kosha realm. We will talk about epigenetics, ancestral trauma, how it works. We will understand that some of the things that we feel and do and say, they're not even from us. They're from our ancestors. They're coming through us, and we'll talk about the various layers of our body, how they're nourished, how we can bring the influence of that inmost divine self to all the layers of our body, how we can heal and access this incredible vitality that is within us. And we'll be able to understand the work of mothering and caregiving, which at their highest, mothering and caregiving at their highest are about making others feel whole and valued and respected and loved. It's about giving dignity and spaciousness to who we are and are becoming. And we will end the class with an exploration of the feminine aspects of the divine. We'll engage with Devi in different aspects and the divine in her forms, which are so integral to healing. And my hope is that each of my students will walk away feeling more empowered, more connected, more confident about themselves as women and mothers, especially in their ability to address any issue that rises up in themselves or their children. So that would be my answer.
Great. If you're still on the fence, you can schedule a call with Shilpa Ji, clarity call, just to ask her questions directly with her. You can click that link and schedule a Zoom meeting or a video meeting, and you can have a direct conversation with Shilpa Ji. Ryan, I recognize your existence. We're gonna have to do that conversation offline at another time. I know it's tough. There's a lot of complicated things going on. Ike, always appreciate you also citing just some things that we know from a long time ago, or we've heard just in the subconscious, right? Hear from the subconscious. Listening to music while in the womb can do this, that, or the other. Ike, always appreciate you. Thank you for sharing. And I think we're kind of close to the end. That was all the other questions in the Q&A box. I don't think, let me check one more time. If you didn't get a shout out and like to let us know where you're zooming in from, happy to do that at this end. And I think Shila G says she liked the mantra, the opening recitation. Maybe you'll do one to close us out as well. But But any other closing thoughts? It's just always my pleasure. I know as a man, I don't appreciate all of it. I can't, but I do. I'm trying. And I appreciate you creating this space. And I think Hindu University of America's consciously with Sankalpa, right, with intention, creating this space. And there's going to be a lot more, as Shilpa Ji alluded to at the start, that we're going to be doing. We just crossed this 5-year mark at Hindu University of America. And we've got a big mission, and we're glad to have you as a part of it. Shilpa Ji, of course, all of you attending today, please take a course, join HUA in whatever way that makes sense for you. If you're on the fence about this course, again, it's in the chat. You can schedule a call directly with Shilpa Ji. And again, always my pleasure. Thank you so much. And with that, let me hand it to Shilpa Ji to close us out, however she sees fit.
Thank you, Ankurji. As always, I'm so appreciative. You do such a beautiful job hosting and making everyone feel so welcome. Thank you, everyone, for attending and taking the time to be with us this evening. I have cleared my schedule tomorrow for 15 minutes. So tomorrow only for 15-minute clarity calls. If anyone wants to join the link and sign up, I'll make myself available. And the class starts next week on Wednesday. So please take a moment to register if this is of interest to you. And really looking forward to having you in the class and to starting or continuing this journey of healing. And since it is Navratri, I want to just, again, take a moment to bow down to Ma Durga and all the forms of Mahakali, which usher in transformation into our lives. So may we release all that needs to be released. May we have the strength to walk this path with the grace of Mahakali at our side. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, everyone, and good night.